Hello, CSC-120. My name is Keyvan Shahrdar, your professor. We will be going over functions this week. So let's go ahead and get started with the presentation. We're going to go over function parts, comments and functions, value returning functions, and we'll go over some problems as well. So function parts, you have a script. It's an independent piece of code that requires no prior knowledge to execute. The function is a self-contained piece of code that performs one task. The return value is a value returned from a function to the calling program when the function is completed. So let's go over what that means. So in a generic pseudocode for a value returning function, if you look at line 1 in the header, it says function return value. That means what is it that we're going to return once you call the function name, and whatever parameters are going to be inside of that function. Those parameters will be called from inside of the function when you make your statements, and then you return the value. Then as you look at line 11, you're actually calling the function and passing whatever variables you need to pass to the function in order for it to return a value. And this is how it looks in a flow chart. So, obviously you're going to have your start, your function, your statements, and stop. And then you're going to have this area here, which is the actual function. So here, when you're calling the function, it goes to here, does this, and then it returns back and does whatever statements it needs to do. A parameter is a value that must be supplied to execute a function. A call by value passes the value to be used by the function. For example, it's a parameter. Call by reference, the value may be updated and used in the program that called the function. For example, it's a star parameter, and we'll go over that in just a minute. Below is the minimum information that you should include in the header for any information to create. So just always enter a remark, and then you're going to type basically what's the purpose of this function. And what are the definitions of the parameters? What do they do? And what's the return type? Are you going to return a value? Are you going to return a Boolean? Are you going to return a string? So now you have value returning functions. So you have already used functions in Python when you accept input from the user. For example, when we say input string, that's actually calling a function. And it is getting passed over to a variable that we're going to be using outside of the function. For example, a equal int input string, or a equals float input string. In this case, input is a built-in function that has one parameter string and returns the string to store in a variable. Write a function calc square that receives a number and returns its square. So the way you would write the function, first you're going to describe what exactly is it going to do. The purpose is to write to square a number. The parameters is going to be num, a numerical to be squared. That's the value. And the return type is going to be numerical. And you're going to create your function numerical calc square num, return num times num. And then you're going to call it, and you can see in line 10, square equals calc square 5. So it's going to pass the number 5 number to the num area here. It's going to say 5 times 5, and it's going to return 5 times 5, which is 25. So square is going to have the value of 25, and then it says print square. Remember, this is pseudocode. And this is how the flowchart would look. Something similar to this. So, you have your square calc 5, and then this is your actual function over here. And this is how it would look in Python. So your Python code would have your remark, so the purpose, the parameter, and the return type. And here you'd have the define calc square num, return num times num, and then here it calls square equals calc square 5. So that means, hey, I'm passing a 5 over to the calc square. Square now has the value of 25, and then you print square, and that's your output. Write a function calc average that receives 3 numbers and returns the average. So obviously we're going to remark what the purpose, parameter, and return type are. We're going to write the function with 3 parameters. You see that here? And then we are going to pass the 3 parameters in here. And then it's going to return the average. So it's going to sum them up and divide by 3. And this is how the flowchart would look. And this here is your Python code. So as you can see, we have calc average. We're passing in the 3 numbers, and those are 2, 3, and 4, as you can see here. That this is calling the function calc square, and it's passing 2, 3, and 4. So then this variables get passed here and creates the average and returns it. And it gives average the value of the average. Create a function called minimum in pseudocode, flowchart, and Python that returns the minimum of 2 values given as parameters. So here you have a function numerical minimum value 1 or value 2. If value 1 is less than value 2, then min is value 1, else min is value 2. So it does this inside of the function, and then you call the function the 5 and 15, and then it tells you, hey, the minimum value is min number, which is going to be 5 in this case. And this is how the flowchart would look. You can see it does have an if statement. If this is less than, min value equals 1. If it's not, then min value equals 2. And this is your Python code. So you're passing the values 5 and 15, and the, as value 1 and value 2, it checks to see if which one is minimum and returns the minimum. And then you have your output min number. Okay, now we also have void functions. That means it that has no return value. So basically what you're doing is you're passing the parameters, and inside the parameters, that's where you will print your output, for example. And generic flowchart looks something similar to this here. And this is your Python code. So you have your parameter 1, parameter 2, statement 1, 2, 3, etc. And then it has a return statement, but it's not returning anything. So, and we're going to give you an example of a void function right now. So here we say, well, calculate calc Fahrenheit. That keeps an input Celsius temperatures, converts it to Fahrenheit. So here we would call the function with a value of 40, and then the 40 would pass in here, do this calculation, this little algorithm right here, and it would print it out inside of the function. So this is a void, as you can see, this is a void function. And this is the flowchart. You have your start, calc Fahrenheit, and your print results there. And this is your Python code. Calc Fahrenheit, Celsius, you print the numbers, and here's your calc Fahrenheit. As you can see, it stays inside. There's no return. It just prints it there. You call the 40, and then it will print out the value. And then here, for example, this is a void function header to print the name, date, and project header titles, and this is what it does. So it prints them out. This is how it would look. This is a flowchart of it. You're passing all this information, and then you're just printing it out inside. And this is how it would look inside of that function. So you could create a void function called triangle that prints out a left-aligned triangle of stars based on the height specific in the numerical parameters. So this is what you would do. This is your pseudocode, right? So this is your function, and it's doing everything inside of the function, and then you're just saying, hey, I want the triangle to have a height of 4, so at least 4 stars high, and that's how it will print out. In conclusion, functions allow you to execute tasks multiple times with one call. Scripts are useful to test code or perform small tasks. Functions receive parameters and return values. Parameters may be either called by reference or called by value based on how the function is used. And it's important at the top of the code or the header, include comments about your function so anyone who uses it knows its purpose. And you could always test your knowledge. There are 7 exercises at the end of the chapter to apply the skills you learned. I want to thank you for watching. Again, Keyvan Shahrdar. You could call me, you could email me, you could text me. Shahrdar or keyvan.shahrdar@lsus.edu. Thank you and have a great day.